Hello and welcome to Mr. Float. Today we are going to talk about object-oriented programming. Before we begin, let's talk about objects in real life. Right now, I've got my laptop, my notebook, my pen, and my water bottle. This particular water bottle has a storage of 1 liter, is green in color, and it's got a particular shape. Now, when we talk about storage, shape, and color, these three form my water bottle. The storage, color, and shape are also known as the properties or attributes of my water bottle. There may be millions other water bottles that we come across which have a different set of attributes. But the building properties or the attributes of the water bottle make it unique. Let's name my water bottle Float Bottle. This float bottle has a particular shape, size, and color, but generally speaking, is just a water bottle with a unique set of attributes. The generic term, what we call as water bottle, can also be called as class. So float water bottle is an object which belongs to the class water bottle.
Now let's try and understand what are classes and methods inside Python. But before we go there, I want you to pay attention to this function type. If we pass it any value or a variable, it tells us what exactly the value is or the variable is. For instance, over here, if I take a variable a and assign it a value 15, and then we pass it to the function type, and if I could just print it out over here, it tells us that a is an int variable, right? But it also mentions class over here. So what that says is a is an object of the class int. In the same way, if we go ahead and assign Mr. Float to the variable a and then we print out its type, it would say that it belongs to the class str, which is string. It says that a is an object of class string. Next, I want you to understand what a method is. Over here, a is an object of the class string. What are the actions that a can perform can be defined as a method. So for instance, over here, if we go ahead and print a.upper, this is the action that has been performed. The uppercase of the string is the action that is performed on the variable a. So upper is a method that belongs to the class string. Now here, if you notice, there are no parameters that have been passed to this method upper. Although we are not passing in any parameters, a itself is a parameter because we are calling upper on a.
Now let's learn how to define a class. For the sake of our example, let's make a class named dog, which has the properties of name and age, to keep our example simple. So when defining a class, all we need to do is type in class keyword followed by the name of a class, and that's about it. Now this is where things get interesting. We have the properties of name and age for each and every object of the class dog. So whenever we want to create a dog, we need to pass in the unique name and age of that particular dog. And those properties and attributes get assigned to the dog or the object in a special function called init. So init is the first function that we normally write in a class. So inside class, we define init as follows: init self. So init has 2 underscores before it and 2 underscores after it. Init stands for initializer or the constructor class. The first parameter is called self, and I'll get back to you in a bit about it. The first attribute that we want to pass in is name, and the second attribute is age. Type in self.name is equal to name. So name of the self or the object here has to be assigned with this name that we pass. And in the same way, we write self.age is equal to age. Now let's define one method. So for instance, we want to define a method on dog. Now method are the actions that can be performed by a dog. In our case, let's just say our dog can speak, right? So we can say define speak, and we pass it that particular object, which is self. And then we can just say print. I'll use a F string here. Print self dot name is barking, is saying woof woof. This is the class which has a init function, which is the constructor function, wherein we pass in the name and age of every object that we want to create. Basically, the objects are created in the init function and the action of every object that we have created. Let's just go ahead and see how to create an object. So for example, let's take d1 as the first object of class dog. So while creating an object, this is all we have to do. We have to type in d1 and dog, a class, an object will be created. However, we need to pass it a name and age. In our case, let's say our dog's name is Tom and his age is 12. Now if we run this, there are no errors and the d1 is created. Let's say we want to make Tom speak. So this is how you call a method on it. So type in d1 and then type speak. Now, as you notice, we don't have to pass anything over here because it doesn't take anything apart from self. It doesn't take any parameter apart from self. This self is d1. Over here, when we go to the initializer function, d1 is the self. Self is a known convention to follow, and everybody uses self. You can replace it by anything. You can just type in ABC over here or XYZ, whatever you want, but just make sure you replace it elsewhere over these positions as well. But the thing is, when you write any code, you're not just writing it for yourself. There are other people who would want to read your code and just understand what you are trying to build or achieve. So that is the reason why we write self, so that everybody else also understands what is going on with your code. Now, coming back to speak, we called speak on the object d1, and when we run it, it says Tom is saying woof woof. Now, as you notice, I called this method on d1, so it knows that self over here is d1, and it fetches the name from our initializer function, which we have already set over here, saying it is Tom. So that is how we call a method on a class. So this is the first ever object that we have created. Now there are other things in classes. There are properties of classes and some special functions that can be used inside classes. I'll be discussing that in the next video. And if you have enjoyed this video, hit the like button so that it helps the YouTube algorithm. And please do subscribe so that it keeps me going. Thank you and see you next time.